Okay, we're going to do solving 1- and 2-step equations. And I'm going to walk you through all the steps. It's going to show you exactly what I expect when you solve equations for me and showing your work and all that so that you can make sure and get full credit. Okay, we'll start with a 1-step equation. And we have this 1-step equation like this: x plus 2 equals 8. And the ultimate goal when you solve an equation is to solve for x, get x all by itself so that you know what the value of x is. Now I completely understand that most of you could look at this equation right now and say, well, x has to be 6 because 6 plus 2 equals 8. And while that's true, and while you can do the equation this way, you can solve this type of equation this way, I want to go through the process of how to solve it so that when they get more complicated and you can't do it in your head, what are the steps that are involved in order to solve these problems. So the first thing we want to do is we want to get x by itself, but we have this plus 2 over here. We need to get rid of plus 2. In order to get rid of a positive 2 or plus 2, we need to subtract 2. We need to do the opposite. Whatever's going on over here, we have to do the opposite of on this side. With equations, though, anytime you have this equal sign in here, because this equal sign represents that this value here is equal to everything over here. So if we're going to take away 2 from this side of the equation, we have to do it on the other side of the equation. That's just a necessity. You have to do that. And for me, right now, you have to show me all this work in order to get full credit. So the x comes down. When you do 2 minus 2, it's going to be left with a 0. And then you have 8 minus 2, and that is 6. Now, this is not good lazy algebra because plus 0 is not necessary. X plus 0 is always going to be whatever x is, so we can write it out as x equals 6. This step is optional. You do not need to write in x plus 0. The more you do this, the faster it'll become, and you just really don't need that, and you'll skip right to this step, and that's fine. So that's our first equation. We just solved it. X equals 6. And if we take this number of x, that we said x is equal to 6, we can check our answer by putting it back into the original equation. So here's x. We said x was 6, so 6 plus 2 equals 8. And that is a true statement. 6 plus 2 does equal 8, so we know that we got that one correct. Okay, let's look at our next problem. It's a different type of 1-step equation. 3a equals 12. Now the variable can be x, it can be a, it can be y, it can be c, it can be anything. So that's just our variable right now. Again, we need to get the variable by itself. But this is multiplication here, 3 times a. So subtracting 3 isn't going to do what we need to do because it just doesn't work. You can't subtract 3 times an a. So in order to make this just a, we have to make the coefficient, or that number in front of the variable, a 1. And so in this case, we're going to divide by 3. If we do 3 divided by 3, we're going to get 1a. And then that means a is all by itself. That's perfect. But remember, just like in the last equation, if you do something to one side of the equation, you have to do it to the other. So we have to divide this number over here by 3 as well. So down here, this is 3 divided by 3. That's going to be 1. And 1 times a equals 12 divided by 3, which is 4. Now once again, lazy algebra says we do not need to have the 1 in front of a because 1 times any number is going to be that same number. So we can simplify this to just be a equals 4, and that is our answer right there. So this is another type of 1-step equation. We have the type of 1-step equation where you have to add or subtract a number to both sides, and then we have a 1-step equation where you have to divide. There also will be where you multiply to get things, to get a by itself, but for now we're just going to do dividing. Alright, next question. And this will be our first 2-step equation. So 5x minus 8 equals negative 13. Okay, there's lots of negatives in here. With a 2-step equation, easiest way to think about it is this 5 right here. Just pretend this 5x to start is just x. So if we cover this up. Let me pull out a little square here so I can get rid of the 5x there. And I'm going to modify that box so that we basically can't see it. Okay, and I'm just going to cover up this 5. I am, for right now, pretending this equation is x minus 8 equals negative 13. I'm just pretending. So that way it looks just like the problem we did before, just like this one up here. X plus 2 equals 8. So we know how to do that one. So it's just x minus 8 minus 13. You want to get rid of the negative 8, you have to do the opposite of that number. We have to add 8 to both sides. And so this comes down, this is our x, this is plus 0, equals, because that equals sign comes down, and when you have a negative 13 plus an 8, you have to start at negative 13 and go 8 in the positive direction, so it's still a negative number, because this is going to be more in the negatives, but it's a negative 5. That's our answer. Now, we have to remember though, it wasn't that easy. We had this 5 over here, and we just pretended it wasn't there for just a few minutes. So let's just remember, okay, it's actually 5x, so we're going to write our 5x in here. Because it truly is 5x, it's not just x. But we're getting rid of it, so it made it simpler. And let's remember, this is kind of, we don't need this. This is extra information, so we're going to write in 5x equals negative 5. Oops, try that again. Equals negative 5. So 5x equals negative 5. We have this 5 multiplied by the x. The only way to get rid of it is to divide it by 5, by the number it is, so that our answer comes out as 1x. Whatever we do to one side of the equation, we have to do the other. So this is negative 5 divided by 5. That's going to equal a negative 1. Now remember, 1 times any number is just that number, so we can just simplify that as x equals negative 1, and there is our answer. X is equal to negative 1. Now, is that correct? That seems like a strange number based on our original equation. Well, if we take x, we put it into the original equation, 5 times negative 1 is negative 5. Negative 5 minus 8 is negative 13. It's exactly what we had to start up here, so we know that we did that process correctly. All right. Here is another question. Last one. Sorry, not that question. Let's try a different one. Negative 2x plus 6 equals, that looks ugly, doesn't it? Try that one more time, see if I can do this the right way. Negative 2x plus 6 equals 4. Now, two-step equation. Remember, pretend this is just x to start, and then go ahead and solve the equation. Pause this and solve the equation. Okay, you should be done now. So, positive 6, I want to get rid of that, so I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. Line underneath it. This drops down, negative 2x equals, you notice I'm getting lazy now, this is going to be 0. I don't need to add that in there. You can put plus 0 in there and then simplify it later, but I'm shortening it. 4 minus 6, positive 4, take away 6, that's going to take me down to a negative 2. Divide both sides by negative 2, and x equals 1. It's negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1. And again, you notice I didn't put 1x over here. I'm starting to get lazier because I know it's not necessary, and whenever I do this division, I'll always end up with 1x. That's the whole point of it. So I can leave it as this. X equals 1. Let's check our answer. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Plus 6 is a positive 4. So we know that checked out. All right. Hopefully that that video helped you out in figuring out how to solve 1- and 2-step equations.